Accept your death.
So whenever I'm learning a new task, I like to become a temporary expert on it. And the problem with this is that when it comes to equipment and hardware and all that kind of stuff, I have to do it constantly. And I haven't upgraded anything on my audio setup for quite some time until recently when my mic bit the dust. It was actually quite funny. I've told the story on stream, but if you haven't heard it was like last week, maybe a week and a half ago, something like that. For some reason, all the lights on my mic were not on, and I thought that was kind of weird. So I was like, I'll just unplug it and plug it back in. I unplugged the USB cable and pulled out a bunch of the insides. And I'm like, well, all right. And I went and looked online, and on some reviews said that, yeah, that is a problem. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to upgrade everything to this old XLR system. So I went out and got this deck. I got current mic, which I'm on right now, and I'm very happy with. But learning how everything works and setting everything up and doing like all this compression and stuff that I've learned before in the past, but I'm very, very much a set and forget kind of person. I don't like to be constantly messing with stuff, but I do that with like,
yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And when you're learning about something new, it's like learning a new character where it's kind of gratifying because once it starts to click, right, you learn really, really fast, like before that plateau. Like in your situation, just enough to kind of get you started. But yeah, you set and forget. And then if you're not using that constantly, your brain's going to free up the capacity for something else that you are using.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to do that with all sorts of things in my life. There's something that's going on that I'll just do a bunch of research and make sure that I really know what I'm doing. And then as soon as I'm finished with that task, it's gone. It's out of there. And I make room for the next thing. Because there's only so many things in life that you can really store in your brain, unless you're using it like every day, like how much useless information about paint is there in my head because I use it like every day,
Yep.
but yeah, so this has been fun learning about audio again, and now it's got me thinking about upgrading the old PC build, and I started like renewing that, and man, I am out of it when it comes to that stuff. It's been a while, but that's probably a testament to probably needing to upgrade some things. So
every time I'm ready to build a new PC, yeah, things are like way different. Like I have to kind of relearn like what the modern chipsets are and pros and cons and, oh, can I reuse my RAM? Like it's from my last build and it's DDR2 and now we're in like DDR5 era or whatever. And it's like, okay. So I'm right there with you on that. Like I know enough about it to get kind of like started. I just need to get current on what's going on. But man, I feel like I'm too old and tired to be building PCs. That shit it's such a pain in the ass sometimes. And it's always the big butt clenching moment when you try to fire it up for the first time after everything's put together. Like,
so scary.
Please start. Okay, it started. Okay, please, BIOS post, please. Okay, it posted. All right. And,
yeah, that anxiety of that first turn on, man. Like I tell you, I've not built like a huge amount of PCs. I think I'll be building my fourth one here coming pretty soon. But like, it doesn't get easier. Every single time I build it, you turn it on and it's like crossing my fingers. Like, and I had an incident on my very first build, where I learned that like building a PC with socks on and carpet is not a great idea. Because I was putting something into the motherboard and I saw a little spark go from like my finger. Like I felt like Raiden or some shit. Like it was right to my motherboard.
That's bad. Like that's the equivalent of you just like having arsenic for lunch or something, right? There's no faster way to kill any electronic device than static electricity.
Static electricity, man. So I learned that's an important lesson that day. Luckily that was the motherboard was the only thing that was affected at that moment, so that was a fairly cheap
only the
fix.
main component in any PC besides the processor. Yeah. Only the thing that everything else plugs into.
I don't even think I had a graphics card in that build. If I'm trying to remember correctly, I don't know. That was like many years ago. So, but I've managed to like stay kind of somewhat current since. So, but yeah, I'm definitely looking to get into it. So if anyone in the comments there has any tips or tricks or anything I should be looking out for, I was already looking at like updating individual components, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, my motherboard is outdated in that department unless I just kind of want to it's
Yep.
something in the same. So looks like I'm rebuilding. That'll.
I'd buy something pre-built. Next time, my next PC, I'm probably just gonna buy one, like, because you also kind of get a warranty for the whole PC if something's wrong. It's not like you have a warranty for each individual component. So if one thing's wrong, right, you end up with a dead stick of RAM, and now the entire build is being held up by just like that one thing. And depending on what brand you bought and how good the company is with stuff like that, I've heard that argument a lot. For just buying something pre-made. I'm kind of on board with that these days.
I was thinking about that. My everyone has always kind of shit on the pre-built stuff, but I mean, I don't know. I can see the components. I can see what exactly is in there. So I mean, I don't really know what makes it so bad. I'm not looking for anything optimal because I don't game on it, right? All I do is I just make content. I want to be able to render videos faster. So I mean, you know.
Right. And I think people dumping on it is more like, going and buying a Hewlett Packard,
Right.
which is not what I'm talking about at all.
Yeah, good old boomer PC moments, like get a Dell. But speaking of, you know what?
Speaking of Dell,
speaking of Dell, we've got Dell comments. No. Well, I wasn't really
speaking Spanish to me now.
I don't speak Spanish, but if that is a word in Spanish, then that was an actual top tier transition. I just wasn't really sure how you go from that to comments, but anyways, y'all left some comments last week, so as always, we're going to go over them here. So starting with Taylor 109, long comment here, I'm going to leave it on the screen, talking about Quan Chi deserves the most buffs, and I say this all the time. People always ask me about Quan Chi buffs. I don't know how you'd buff him anymore. At this point, this season of Combat League, I did a lot better with Quan than I have in a lot of previous seasons. Don't really know what it is, but like I've went on multiple 10 streaks in God tier, and I don't know, just between, maybe it's because I'm actually bouncing around and using decent cameos with him or something, but I mean, I've been having much better success with him, and he doesn't feel as bad. I really like the enhanced Bone Dome buff. That was really useful.
Well, yeah, and you're playing him with an ambush with all these other cameos and stuff where you don't get that with Shujinko. I feel like if you're always playing a cameo that is missing something like that, you're kind of missing out on part of the game. Ambushes are such a big part of it, and as strong as Shujinko is, not having an ambush really you can see the difference, right? Like I saw your sector video, and every time I've brought up that team historically in the last year and a half, you just kind of scoff. You completely dismiss it. And then Draz started playing it a little bit, and we were talking about it, and I just always remember you just kind of scoffing, you just don't even want to hear it. But it seemed like it was putting in some work for you.
It's a decent cameo. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying that it's Quan's best cameo, and it literally can't be if it doesn't give you any health. But I think it's probably on the top tier of the cameos that don't give him any health, if that makes sense. I think I'm more excited to do my actual tier list than I am just playing through all the cameos, because it's been an interesting experiment, because I've actually flip-flopped on a lot of my thoughts of these. Well, I actually played them when I had this kind of hard mindset of no, this is where this cameo sits in this tier list, and now I'm kind of okay, well, maybe not. Maybe this cameo is better than I thought it was, or cameos I thought had potential. I'm nope, this is actual garbage. So
doesn't that you kind of get this idea, but you can't play the game immediately, whether you're working or you're out somewhere. So you start theory crafting in your head, and you're so excited to, fire up and try out all these ideas, and nothing works at all.
Yeah, I felt that way with Farah when I had all these ideas behind the meter building on her little cheering thing, and then it just ended up not coming to fruition. To be fair,
I was messing around with a lot of that yesterday. It's the Melina Farah.
Melina Farah, that sounds scary.
Yeah, with the old lackey, getting her in position, and like I was telling you, Quan Chi doesn't really have the hit advantage for it, the hit advantage and/or spacing, but Melina's Melina with really good hit advantage and really good spacing, on all of her enders. So You set up the lackey, and during that hit advantage after forward 4 or whatever, you get her up on your back, and you might not have time to beat armor, like with the overhead low, but you can definitely pain and gain, things like that.
Right. That makes sense. I also just want to quickly go over the second part of this comment, because he's talking about the lore of Quan Chi and just how cool Quan Chi is, and how Quan Chi always affects everybody when he shows up, which is true, and it always sucks when you see a really lore heavy character get the low tier treatment in the game, because he is cool. He like I said, he started the rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, created Ermac, created Noob Saibot. All these characters wouldn't exist without Quan Chi.
Would you rather that he stays exactly as he is right now, or he gets the Havoc treatment? Because if he gets the Havoc treatment, everyone's going to play him. Everyone's going to learn the matchup. Everyone's going to be complaining about him. And who knows what they would change to bring him up to that level. Would that ruin your experience? You don't care about stuff like that?
I care deeply for stuff like that. So, which is exactly why I would not want him to get the Havoc treatment. I would prefer that my character be somewhat difficult to play, but also quite effective if you play them properly. Which I think a lot of the Quan Chis that I see, mostly in Combat League, but you see the odd one competitively too. They really try and make his big combos work and the damage, and I really, really don't think that's how he's supposed to be played. And I have some fairly decent, success playing him as his owner, and I think if players that were better than me maybe put more of a focus on that, then maybe there would be, some more success with the character, but maybe they have, and that's why they don't do that. So I have no idea. This character's in a weird spot. He plays weird. He's playing a different game than MK1. And I don't know.
So his down back 4, how would you feel if they made the EX version only 1 bar, but it's a mid? Do you think that's a fair trade-off, or would you rather 2 bars and keep the low?
I would rather 2 bars and keep the low. The low catches a lot of movement, and at certain ranges, it can be pretty much safe, depending on the character that you're fighting against. So I find it especially useful for someone like Quan, who kind of wants to keep the characters away, that they're trying to sneak in and just catch them off guard with that catch a forward dash or something with the tentacle. I mean, if you want combo damage, that's what the cameos are for. You pick a cameo that uses it, and then you use your 2 bars if you need to really cash something out. But I don't know. I'm sure if they made it 1 bar, yay, I suppose, great. But I mean, especially with the forward 2 buff, going into the down back 1, that's a safe on block 1 bar combo launcher anyways. So I mean, you have a 1 bar launch if you want it. It's not off of a mix.
That has a big old gap, doesn't it?
No, forward 2, that was the buff he received actually in the last patch, was that forward 2 has a lot more cancel advantage. So it can combo.
So it combos, but that can't be armor on block. I guess I'm talking about forward 2 and then armor in between before that projectile. That's gotta.
It would depend on the armor, because the projectile is 2 hits, so it would shred your armor if you got your armor out. But if your armor's
there's a big enough gap for armor to start, but you may not weasel your way out.
If you're like Shang Tsung that has forward moving armor, then maybe. But I haven't tested anything. I'm actually not even 100% sure if there's an armor gap. I instinctively want to say there isn't. I think you have to block that, but I could be wrong. I'll have to test that and report back. But anyways, thank you for the comment. I appreciate that a lot. Grez Moses comments a lot on our podcast. I actually enjoy watching your sector because I play her occasionally as well. I have a lot of fun playing her. I mean, I had an evening this week where I kind of played her a little bit and got back to the zoning. I've still been meaning to go hard into the Motaro pick with her, because I just want to see what the meta's like. It looks fun. Won a tournament recently, and I think she's super, super strong. I don't really expect her to get if there is a bounce patch, we'll get into that later at some point in the future. I don't really expect her to get hit super hard or anything. When I see good sector players, they're definitely outplaying. They're playing their ass off. She doesn't do anything that's super cheap, in my opinion. I know you've dabbled with her as well, Hater. I don't know if you have a different opinion than me or not.
I think that she is like this is people's main complaint about her. So even though her mid's only 15 frames, her buttons are very good. Like she's very good at full screen and she's got good zoning tools, but she's got really good buttons too. And I feel like that's a lot of people's complaint is like, she should be like really good at one or the other, but she's kind of really good at both, and like really easy hit confirms and not the best damage, but definitely. I mean, she's really good at holding on to momentum. You see Hourglass of Rain play her with Kano, and he kind of plays that as like a chip team.
Right.
You block an air grenade and then you block two Kano knives like that you're jailed into blocking into another air grenade. That's a shitload of chip from one sequence. I feel that's kind of how people play Kano in general, unless you're just trying to use him to, like, you're Raiden, right? And you just do whatever the fuck you want into daggers or ball. I know they kind of nerfed that team and stuff, but that basic idea. People that play him, like, you play him like the way that, like with Sector and Baraka, to where he seems to be a cameo that really enables chip sequences.
Yeah, Kano is so interesting because he is just the most basic cameo and has just been nothing but effective since day one. Never, like, obviously because some teams have been nerfed, but Kano himself I don't think has really received any nerfs. If anything, I think he got overbuffed.
Yeah, they nerfed the ball, didn't they? That's what killed the Raiden team, or at least that version of it.
Okay,
something with the ball.
I don't remember that, to be honest. I
don't remember either. I do every time we talk about Kano, I just think about like the stress test. Like the very first time we got our hands on this game, and his forward throw was like 20 seconds long because he just sat there and popped off. He does the old headbutt and throw, and then throws his arms out and starts walking backwards for like a million billion years.
I forgot about that. How he was. I think him and Liu Kang were like my team, my very first team, and then because I would do like end the combo with the air fireball with Liu Kang, call out the Kano knives. The Kano knives would hit them and keep them juggled, and then I would do like his full screen little dragon kick thing to end the combo. I remember that thing. I'd be like, oh, this is so cool. I wonder what all the other cameos are gonna do.
My first team was Sub-Zero Sonya. And I was like, back three into the overhead. Look at this side switch combo, guys. I did back three into the leg overhead, into a 2-1 slide.
A 2-1 slide. The good old days of the beta, I tell you.
I remember. I don't even think it worked in the stress test that you could do 2 back twos in a row, or maybe you couldn't get the third one, because I know they changed that a little bit. But I remember his combos definitely. I felt like of all the stress test characters, Sub-Zero felt like he kind of had the most adjustments in between the stress tests and the beta. I'm not sure if they slowed down his mid by the beta, but I feel like the back two was definitely interacting differently.
Yeah, I can't really remember that far. That was such a long time ago, thinking about it now. I can't believe how long this game's been out for. We're coming up with a 2-year mark.
2 years in September.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I still think that it came out like last September, but that was like Chaos Reigns.
I mean, the first 6 months of the game was them basically just trying to catch up with themselves, so it was kind of a shit show. And then for long after that, it probably took 9 months or almost that full first year to kind of get the game in shape, get it in order and stuff.
Yeah, and I think they kind of finally got it there. As of right now, I think the game's in a pretty good place. I think there's a pretty clear top tier in my opinion, but as far as balance-wise goes, I think everyone has some sauce. As much as you just pick Movado and profit, I'm kidding. Right. I'm kidding. Movado hate is real on this podcast, but I was actually messing around with him last night because I haven't done him in my cameo section yet, so he might be next. I might have to.
Well, you've seen. It was Hero Playa, right? That was doing Quan Movado in your Bone Dome?
Yeah, and really cool combos too. I got to look back and see if I can find those combos, because some of those were really neat. And I'd like to pick them up before I play Movado again, just to, if I can be swaggy with him, sure. Then I'll feel a little bit better playing him. That 850 health though, I don't know about that.
That's rough.
That's rough life. Unless you're with Motaro, then it's kind of somewhat manageable. But even then, it's not. 2 hits and you're dead. So, anyways, we went a little bit off topic on that one, but thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy seeing me play Sector. I'll continue to put out some content on her just to keep that going. And the last comment here, there was actually a couple comments on MKX Tanya. A couple people that were talking about that, how they liked her design.
Our little walk down memory lane.
Yeah. And you know, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but I remember her design. I don't know if her design was different in the story mode or if she didn't have glowy eyes. Something was different about her in the story mode when she appeared. And then when
a lot of the characters that were in the story mode that were into, and she didn't have the milky eyes, the ghosted out eyes, and there was like something else, but like, you know, Sindel, Baraka, if you were able to like mod that game and pull them into practice mode and stuff like that, they were basically just ports of their MK9 counterparts, for the most part. And I feel like that might have. There was no Tanya gameplay, right? In the story mode, she was just like in some cutscenes. Did you fight against her or anything?
Yeah, you fought her in the jungle, the Kuatan jungle, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, when you're like on your way to meet Devore or something like that. I think you fight her as Cassie. That's kind of interesting. One thing going off of MKX that I kind of forgot about until someone reminded me of it earlier this week, was that in one of the final chapters of the story mode of MK1, spoiler, it's been 2 years, come on now, we see a redesign of Kung Jin, which kind of like, which I kind of hinted to me that they had plans to kind of put him in the game, especially considering that Cassie and Jackie, who also appeared there, had their original MKX designs, which felt to me more like kind of throwaway kind of characters, and then Kung Jin had his whole new kind of redesign with a new hairdo and all that kind of stuff. He looked pretty badass.
Yeah, they've done redesigns for characters without putting them in the game, though. Like, dude, MK11 was the worst about that because Ermac and Cyrax and Sector, dude, the glow up with Cyrax and Sector did not even have them in the game. What the hell? Like,
what a tease.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not sure who made that decision, but I think that's probably why they wanted to include those designs in the in MK1 in some version or another. Because yeah, those were super sick designs. Someone put a lot of effort into that. And
yeah, they're all in. So Ermac, Cyrax, and Sector, the cameo Cyrax and Sector, all got their MK11 skins.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's cool that, you know, we finally got them. Better late than never. You know, I do think that that's one thing that NRS does pretty well is their character redesigns. They do a good job of like keeping the core, you know, throughout all the NRS games, but like switching it up enough that it feels like a different iteration of itself. You know, like Liu Kang from MK11 to MK1, even though similar timeline, managed to kind of freshen them up a bit. You know.
You know, it doesn't always hit though. Like, something switched in my brain as soon as they released those MKX skins for Scorpion and Sub-Zero. It's like, okay, no contest. This is just like infinitely better. And these are like way more iconic versions of the characters that I actually think Sub-Zero looks really good in this game. Scorpion's like, I mean, it's okay. But those, for both of those characters, as far as my own customization, those are permanent residents on Sub-Zero and Scorpion.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really see myself playing Scorpion too seriously again, but if I do, I think I'm probably rocking that skin. It's so cool. The MKX era in general just had some really, really cool designs. I was super happy with those. And especially like the switch up from MK9, which was like, and then that's kind of like contested a lot, right? Because you go over like MK9 was like, you know, like the classic, you know, courtyard, you know, a little bit more like traditional kung fu kind of feel. And then MKX is like this dark and gritty thing with like undead and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of gets
everyone's
lost.
Wet all the time. You can't tell if they broke out in hives or if those are supposed to be beads of sweat, you know, on the windscreens.
The beads of sweat on the fingernails was my favorite.
Dude, it looks like man, what was that called in Game of Thrones? A grayscale or whatever, you know, the condition where they just, I don't know.
Someone in the comments will pick that up, but I ain't getting it. I did not watch that series, so
But yeah, this comment about MKX Tanya, the more I read, because there was a couple comments about it, and as I was reading them, it made me more salty about MK1 Tanya. I was like, man, Tanya used to. I mean, the MK1 Tanya's like okay, and she's cool and stuff, but we talked about it last week. That's what spurred the comments. Is that dude? The MKX Tanya was so sick.
Yeah, super duper sick. And then MK11 came along, and then you had the whole kind of time travel, different universe thing, Chronica, all that kind of stuff. Cetrion. Yeah. Cetrion was a cool idea because, like, I like that she was, like Shinnok having a sister. Kind of interesting, like one of the elder gods kind of idea.
I think that idea is super cool too, and I like Chronica. I don't like the overall story, but Chronica as a character, I was actually really mad when we found out she wasn't going to be playable. I was expecting like a boss playable character like Brainiac and Injustice 2.
Right.
And that's who I wanted to main. Like this is before even like the stress test and things like that. We're just kind of like expecting her to be part of it. I was like, oh, yep, she's totally on my radar. And people are like, she's a bald space baby. And I was like, I don't care.
Bald
I think
space
she's
baby.
sick. Jennifer Hale voicing her.
Yeah, that was a big opportunity. You got Jennifer Hale behind that. You're not gonna make that a playable character. Like, come on now, that could be really cool.
And Chronica was like my announcer all through MK11. Perfect little announcer voice. Put it on Chronica and never turned it off again.
I've just been rocking Johnny Cage just because it always makes me laugh. And doesn't matter how repetitive it gets. And whenever there's a new character that comes out and hearing all his little quips and everything, it always makes me giggle. I would challenge.
What does he call Melina?
Oh, feral princess or something like that. There's a couple ones that he has, like, I'd say 2 or 3 for most of the cast, and then every once in a while he'll just be like Melina, And then of course the cameos as well. Like he picks Sonya and he's like, someday Lieutenant Bay, and it's like.
I wish we would have got a Farah announcer. That would be funny because they could do kind of like the same thing because she talks so much shit. But I just don't think they got Tara Strong back. They just reused MKX assets. You can kind of tell. But I love that Melina intro in MKX, Melina versus Farah tour, and Farah is like big teeth, nasty, like that stuff. Nasty.
Yeah, she has so much personality in that game. What a cool character. I do wonder if they ever had any intent to bring Tor into MK1 so you could rock that team together. I don't know how popular that team would be, if I'm being honest. Tor was super popular.
There were just so many characters from like the 3D era and even from MK9 did not make the MKX roster because there were so many new characters. And here we are without some of them. Some of them made it to MK11 and others didn't. And then some of them made it to MK1 while others didn't. That made it to 11. I think that's pretty interesting. But I think that there's probably, of all of the newcomers in MKX, there's got to be 4 or 5 that are super solid, like in my mind, that I think really fit Mortal Kombat and kind of, Kotal Khan's sick. I think Aaron Black is sick. Farah Tor is cool. Of all the combat kids, I really like Cassie Cage, even though we're kind of Earthrealm whatever, and we're kind of oversaturated with Johnny Sonya stuff anyway. I still really like Cassie. I think her introduction in MKX, I think I really see her in the MK universe. I think that was whoever created the ideas behind creating that character. I think was a super solid move.
I will say that my feelings on Cassie in MKX were I really liked her outside of story mode because she was like 2 different characters. Like in story mode, she's like this super like stern, like leader kind of a thing. And then every single intro in the game, she's just sassy and quippy and like,
always talking shit.
But she's
got,
anything like that in the story mode. So it's like,
no,
it's like, I don't know. I didn't really care for her in the story, but like playing against her, always let the intros rock. She's hilarious.
She definitely should have had something, you shut your face or I'll crush your nuts or something, right? In the story mode, like I love the whole, because she has a lot of the Johnny motifs Like Nut Punch, only like the ding dong, the double hit, ding
Ding
dong.
dong. Yeah, I forgot about
Oh
that.
my god, iconic.
Yeah, they did a really good job of kind of capturing the character from both sides, the Sonya and the Johnny side. So that's
Oh, Devora also MKX newcomer who is super sick and absolutely, fits the kind of MK universe and stuff.
yeah, it's interesting with MK1 being like kind of the biggest roster of Mortal Kombat characters between cast and cameos that we've ever seen. That there's still some characters that I think were really well received that didn't make the cut. Kind of interesting. I think like the two you mentioned, Aaron, and there was another one. I can't remember who your second one was.
Nightwolf. So he wasn't
Nightwolf.
MKX, obviously, right? Well, he was in the story mode, but these kind of linchpins for the franchise that probably, they definitely have a place in MK1. They just haven't been put in the game yet, and I feel like they're kind of icons of the franchise in the modern day. Both those characters, I would not be mad to see them on the roster if we ever get more characters.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Aaron Black for sure was probably one of the coolest new characters they did, and like, yeah, he has cameos like, if you lose a test your might, he'll shoot you in the head or whatever. You get a little quip like "end of the line, cowboy" or something like that. I forget what he says. I don't think it's that, but it's something.
Nightwolf
like
kills you in the test your mights too, right? Don't you end up with like one of the glowy green hatchets or arrows or something?
Yeah, I think you do both. Like return to your ancestors, and then like shoots you with a bunch of arrows and stuff, which is like kind of cool, I guess. But like it'd be neat to have them as characters. Cabal is another one who could totally make a return back. I'd welcome him for sure. He was
an MK. So introduced in MK3, right? And I think he was one of those early the new era dawned with MK3. Cabal was like how we've been talking about all these characters with MKX. I feel like that's what Cabal is to MK3. Same with the Borgs.
Yep, same idea. Yeah, Human Smoke. Or was he Ultimate MK3? I don't know. I always get those two mixed up. And I was not very active in that era. I
think we just had Sector and Cyrax in MK3. Is that right? And then Smoke was like a secret character?
I think Smoke and Noob Saibot were both secret characters. And then Ultimate MK3, they were actually roster characters, if I remember correctly. And then MK4, and they had that whole timeline where they got rid of Kano and tried to replace him with Jarek. That's funny.
Well, and they kind of introduced, that's where they introduced Shinnok, right? That was his first of the MK game. He may have been in like, was he?
I think he's in Mythologies, which technically came first, I think. My timeline in that era is not.
But not like a playable fighting game type stuff.
No, more like a story kind of antagonist. And that's when Quan Chi was introduced as well. And then MK4, that's when they played.
I feel like they try to do that a lot. Like, Kano wasn't in MK2, I want to say. Then they brought him back into MK3. Sonya wasn't in MK2 and they brought her back in. Oh, no, she was in MK2, right? Oh, no, Jax was in it.
Yeah,
man, I'm fuzzy on this. Jax was introduced in MK2.
Because you had the Shao Kahn stage where you had Kano and Sonya tied up on that one.
Yeah.
I think the story was that they were like going to Outworld to... I don't know what the story is there, to be... I don't even know why I attempted it. I just know that they're locked up there. And then they did like kind of the shadow of that in MK9 where they had Scarlet locked up, I think, at one point.
Mm-hmm. Was it Scarlet and Katana?
Yeah, I think Scarlet and Katana. And then because Scarlet was DLC, so she wasn't on base roster. So you could see her on the stage and be like, oh, there's Scarlet. I don't remember.
That was her first appearance, right? Was MK9? Old Scarlet?
Yeah, she was a...
Whose lore was that she was a blood golem created by Shao Kahn. Like she was basically made from magic, which is not what her MK11 story is.
No, definitely not. I believe that's what that's kind of what they came up with in MK9, because like none of the DLC characters had any voice lines. I think Freddy laughed, and that was about as close as you could get. But they were all just sounds, and like Scarlet just sounded like a raging duck, to be honest. Whenever you hit her, it was kind of off-putting. But I mean, for those that don't know, Scarlet was actually a rumor of a character in, I believe, Mortal Kombat 2, where there was like an issue where every once in a while Melina would change color to like a dark red, and people thought that was like a secret character named Scarlet. I think is what kind of like the fan base started calling her, and then in MK9, that's when they actually decided to make her a real character. So kind of a neat little homage to things. There've been a bunch of those things, like the dudes that are fighting on the bridge in Mortal Kombat 2. I think one of them, they named him Hornbuckle. This is just what people started calling him. I don't exactly know why, but he's fighting Blaze. And I think they actually explain what Blaze was doing there in MK Deadly Alliance, but I actually didn't really play that game that seriously, so I'm not super sure about that lore. But yeah, and then they had like an April Fool's joke at one point. Was like a centaur character or something named Melock or Melock or something like that, and they put in like a gaming magazine. And yeah, just to throw people off. I don't think it ever came to fruition. It'd be cool if they like went back and like actually try to design these characters. That'd be kind of cool. I'd welcome that. I don't know how you would do it, but
I feel like they have so many just really good, already kind of fleshed out characters that are missing.
I would like to see. I would like to see, since they're having like this kind of 3D era wish list. If like this is like far and away not going to happen, but if I had my way, we would have another story pack and would retell the stories of Taven and Dagon, because that storyline is actually super cool, and the way that they like interact with all the different characters. And at one point you're like in Sector's Takunan clan and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, the whole thing is super duper cool. And then Dagon being like the leader of the Red Dragon, like, oh man. And I've seen Dagon,
they should make them put them in the game as cameos, but they're a team. They're like a pair, right? Like we have all these like, you know, Chameleon's got her disguises, and Tremor can go through his variations and stuff, and they can do something unique with a little double cameo.
That would be kind of cool, because like, yeah, I know that Haven's special moves, he had like this like forward punch thing, like he would like teleport across the screen, like punch you a couple times. You'd have him do that, and then he also had like a ground pound where he jumped like really high in the air and just exploded in an area. They could do something super cool like that. And then Dagon was pretty basic. He had the double swords, so he could do some double sword type stuff, and then a fireball, I think. But I don't really remember what he did outside of that. But they're cool characters.
I think the last expansion was Chaos Reign, so I think it would be cool if there was some Order Realm stuff to kind of like counterbalance that. But somebody that's maybe, so Liu Kang is kind of, you know, the new Chronica or whatever, the master of the universe. It would be nice to, if they introduced something with the Order Realm that was even like beyond Liu Kang, like that left him, you know, kind of like confused. It's not part of the world that he created, but it's, you know, it is a part of it now, but he didn't really have anything to do with it, and kind of like recalibrate stuff. It's like, bro, you fucked up. Like, why did you make Raiden this way? This is awful. Why?
Why is he a little bitch boy?
Why is Scorpion Sub-Zero's brother? Like, where's Hanzo?
It's like this little like side universe that Geras was like crafting behind Liu Kang's back, like his little building a sandcastle in the corner of the box, just like, okay.
You say crafting, right? Yeah, he's there like sewing his britches or something. And, I got a hole in my pants.
Yeah, exactly, right. He's just crafting. He's the other way. He's got his focus.
Too many time stops. Am I right?
I agree though that like kind of it makes more sense for the Order Realm stuff to be. I just don't know how many characters you could pull out of that, right? Like you got Hotaro, obviously, would be super cool to see how they would redesign him. But I mean, Darius is already there as like a rebellion, but you know, not really a character cameo, I guess. And I mean, then you also have Dairu, but they already like reconned him and said that he's actually Havoc now. So like, I just don't know
that's like his name, right? Dairu's real name is what they gave Havoc's real name.
Yeah, like I think someone calls him that at some point in the story mode.
No, it's like in one of the intros, and he's like, "How do you know that name?" Or something. Right.
So I don't really know how you would go through that. I actually found Havoc in Chaos Reigns kind of cringy. I don't know. I didn't really like him that much. He was a little bit too much like rule the world and not like, you know, let chaos embrace everything. I found, you know, it was more like trying to fight I don't know.
I think I think his design in general is a little kind of too over the top. I do the way he was introduced in Chaos Reigns, right, where his head just comes tumbling out, then it looks at him, and then he puts it on. I thought that was like
cool.
super sick, but I don't need to see his intestines falling out like during like the intros and stuff like that. Like that's just kind of. It's not that I'm like super squeamish. It's kind of like eye rolling to me. It doesn't like do anything for me, and it kind of like detracts. But I don't like a lot of the gut stuff anyway, like fatalities that have to do with guts, like Ermax from MKX. I'm just kind of like, oh geez. Natara's is kind of cool because it's like a leash, right? She's using it and pulls out your skeleton by your intestine as she's like flying around.
Same with Lee Mays.
And that's just kind of like funny.
Lee Mays, how she lights your intestine up like a fuse and just blows your head off.
Yeah.
That's
fine, but I don't need the poop shoot come tumbling out or whatever at the end of like every fatality and stuff. I don't like the skin melty ones either, like Katana's fatality and Shang's brutal, where your skin just kind of like melts off.
Right.
Something about that's kind of, again, like I don't really consider myself a prude. I'm not like offended by it, but it's just kind of like, like it's not like a fuck yeah. I remember the first time I saw Kano rip out somebody's heart or Raiden's blow up somebody's head from like, the first MK. That was so cool. Right. They're very, they obviously have to like outdo themselves and stuff, this time, and they always have to be creative and stuff. It definitely, I don't know. They get in MK11, it was like the new eyeball technology. Everything had eyeballs flying out or eyeballs being poked out of your head or something. They got to make really good use of, the eyeball tech that they
all right, everyone. We just installed the new eyeball mod. Let's come up with ideas here on how we can get the most out of our eyeball mileage.
Dude, and it was like the most distracting part of every one of those situations. Like this fatality would actually be like a 10 out of 10 for me if it weren't for just the eyeball chilling there at the end. Like when Scarlet has the blood into spikes that all poke through your body, and one goes through your eyeball, and one goes through your eye socket, and the eyeball's just chilling there at the end, and that's where the camera's like focused from, an upwards angle and stuff. And it's like, that just
was that really necessary?
What a way to give me like a nice medium rare steak and then put ketchup on it.
Ew. I knew someone that put ketchup on steak at one point. I was very
I mean that's fine. I don't think it's disgusting. I just don't feel like it needs it. And it's kind of like, it's like having chicken nuggets instead of chicken parmesan or something like a picky kid would, like I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I was just gonna say just have chicken nuggies then,
Yeah, mac and cheese. Mac and cheese and chicky nuggies.
Yeah. It's like I saw a meme the other day. It was like mac and cheese, chicken nuggies, pizza, and I think donuts. And it was like the 4 horsemen of picky eaters or something like that. It was pretty funny. But yeah, if there is a story expansion, I just hope that it's done well. Like I said, I'm not expecting anything. The Order Realm would be a nice counter to the Chaos Reigns, but I mean, I just don't know what characters you could pull. And I don't see them introducing any new characters. That would be far and away if they introduced new characters in a story expansion of all places, right?
Yeah, I don't think that Chaos Reigns did as well as they're expecting, like their projected numbers for units sold or whatever. I mean, the game's obviously doing well. Ed Boon just posted that thing earlier this week, right? They're still in the top 20 for all games, all AAA games, right? Not fighting games. It's literally the only fighting game that ever even starts flirting with that list. And they're still like number 18, a year and a half later.
Which is interesting because I noticed that they've been having like 90% off sales on like all the NRS games. So, I mean,
I feel like they do that a lot.
I wonder if that's what's keeping them that top 20, They're like, just keep the sales coming, make it cheap.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure that's part of it. And it's still more than like, look, if you're going to charge somebody $6 for your $60 game, that's still $6 is more than $0. And, it gives them opportunities to buy stuff at the premium store and all that sort of thing. And what happens when games age, and I feel like they're usually it's usually like a publisher sell. So I wonder if WB just overall has like something going on or what. But dude, I bought MK11 and Injustice 2 for PC on Steam as like a bundle for $4.99.
Dang, that's a steal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I said I'd never do this, but part of me is like thinking about going back and playing MK11 again. I have no idea why. That just popped in my head this week, and I was like, I should maybe go back and see if it's as boring as I remember it being. I'm like 90% sure it's going to be, but
I'm not worried about it being boring. I'm worried about fucking breakaway full punish combos and being flawless blocked out of your hit advantage and shit
Right.
like that used to really tilt me. I've been watching, so Losty Girl has been playing MKX and MK11 and posting clips on Twitter this week, and she had a comment about interactables from MK11.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so glad they're not an MK1. I was like, I agree. And I watched the clip, and it's like one of those, not like the opponent using it to try to get an advantage, but she tried to amplify something. And it's the same button as interacting with an interactable. So you get the interactable instead of spending the bar to extend your combo. Or that's how I got eliminated at Evo.
Really?
The exact same sort of situation. Yeah, I was in losers fighting this Jade, and I was gonna win. I mean, it was last round, last game. I was in a position to win, and I do my blood bolt, and I go to amplify it so I can get some health back. But I was standing right next to an interactable, and then I whiffed it and got whiff punished.
Oh, feels bad.
It's fucking stupid. It's so stupid. Like, why would they make that the same button? And you meter burn it like you do an Injustice. It's not like an EX, like an MK. Like, it's kind of like the delayed. You do your input and then you do it afterwards. You enhance it afterwards. And sometimes it took even like, with Scarlet's Blood Bolt, you amplify it as it hits them. So if you're full screen, there's definitely a delay there.
Right.
And it just prioritizes interactables rather than, that for whatever reason. I'm glad they're gone too. I hope, and if they do an Injustice 3, I don't want interactables back, especially the way they do it in that game, since they're different depending on how they've categorized your character and stuff, which is like a clear advantage on certain stages in certain matchups.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, Hater. I would be quite surprised if they didn't have interactables in Injustice 2.
I agree.
Or Injustice 3.
They need to not be so party gamey though, like just a little bit more basic.
Yeah, just like throw a projectile, or like like that. They had the laser on the one side of the Superman stage, which was like super duper obnoxious to just like do over and over and over again, certain characters, and it was, I don't know. It was just things like that I don't really like. Corner escapes, sure, those are okay. I'm fine with that. Throw a little projectile, background bounce. Actually, background bounces were pretty cool. I thought that was a cool way.
I miss those. Yeah. I miss those a lot. We've talked about this before. Background bounce combos, down 2 combos. That shit was fun.
It was fun. And again, I don't really anticipate them getting rid of that. I think it's just part of the series, but I would like to see it'd be a little bit less something you can abuse, I guess, is how I put it. Something you can exploitative. I don't really know what the term is, but just something that adds a little bit, but isn't going to completely sway the whole match. Nice little bonus. But Injustice 3 is a talk for another day, I think, because who knows if we'll get some news on that front anytime soon. We've
speculated a lot about it in recent weeks too, so no need to go over it again unless we get some sort of info.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next coming weeks, though. Before we get off here, I do want to say something kind of unrelated to MK. Is that I have been playing a game called Expedition 33, and I'm not super far into it right now. I'm probably about 3 to 4 hours in, but man, is that not a beautiful game? I am enjoying it from every minute, and I don't even fully know what's going on in the story. I don't know why I am where I am. I don't really know who I'm with. I don't know why we were picked to be there, but like,
you're in a canvas, like Souls style. You're in a painting, right?
It's super cool. Like it's I don't know. Like the kind of tutorial was like so like like bright and vibrant and happy, and then just boom, darkness. Right. Also, I was like, oh, okay, we're in for a good ride here. But yeah, the gameplay is like, it felt like someone like went into my brain and was like, how can we make a game that's made specifically, the combat's made specifically for Dink? Like, let's take this, and you have like the little things, little touch of Souls with like the dodging and the parrying, and then like, but the turn-based strategy of like a Fire Emblem or something like that, you know, it's
Yeah, where you take your sweet ass time during your turn, but when it's the opponent's turn, you have to be ready to parry and dodge and stuff like that in real time, right? That's a cool way to kind of like change it up.
yeah, it's super neat, super unique. I haven't played anything like it, and you have all like the classic like customization things, like the skill tree and like the weapons, all that kind of stuff.
Man, all the particle effects and everything looks so awesome. Like the color schemes they use, the character designs, super solid voice act. Like Andy Serkis, I think, is a character in that game. And they got Shadowheart, and I think Lae'zel's in it too. Or Shadowheart definitely is. I re-downloaded Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't played the Claire Obscure, the Expedition 33 yet, but I've been watching a bunch of streams and I just listen to Shadowheart, you know, the whole time.
Right. It's super cool. It's I got it. I was on the fence about getting it because I was like, same with Oblivion, which I was like, I don't really know if I want to spend money on this because I don't know if I like it. But boom, there it is, included with my Game Pass. You know, not sponsored or anything. I just another game I didn't have to pay for. So
Ink is an Xbox shill.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't missed my PlayStation since it died. That's all I'll say. So, you know, we'll see. I am using my PS5 controller for MK though on my Xbox with my converter, because I will say that's one thing I don't like about the Xbox. The controller is not very nice, and even I tried the Elite controller, and within a month of having it, my left bumper broke. which cameo button in MK1, so I mean it's kind of important.
I feel like most people feel the opposite way.
Yeah, and I'm
that the Xbox is better, has a little bit better of a D-pad and stuff. A lot of people I see play other games, right? RPGs, like when they're on PC, they prefer to use an Xbox controller, and I think a lot of that is the layout. I feel like that's the kind of the big distinction between the two is not necessarily the big ass trackpad or whatever in the middle, the PlayStation button versus the Xbox button or whatever. But your left and right analog stick, they're, you know, parallel on the PlayStation, but they're staggered on the Xbox. And I think people like that a lot, like for ergonomics, to have the D-pad below your left thumb, like where your left thumb's on the analog stick and your D-pad's below, not above.
Yeah, I will say I will agree with that. I like the layout of the Xbox a little bit more. I find that I'm more probable to hit like the start button or like the touchpad accidentally on the PlayStation than I would on the Xbox. But I think one of the reasons why I like my PlayStation pad more is because I modded the D-pad. So like obviously that's taking one of the worst parts of the pad, which I would definitely agree on, and making it kind of custom. But other than that, you know.
Yeah, the pad that lost retro is Evo.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a legendary pad, you know. It was I still remember like Retro just all caps texting me like, I forgot my pad. Oh my God, can I use yours? And I was just like, you can. And then
yeah, he probably should have borrowed somebody else's.
Yeah, you know what? I should have probably suggested that thinking back, but in the moment I was kind of like, you can, but I mean, you know, gave him the warnings. And then it's funny because as soon as I watched him playing, it's exactly what I thought would happen, because you have to go like heavy on the back forwards, whereas I think on the original one you can kind of roll it a little bit more, and you know, just getting standing ones full screen that I knew were supposed to be fans, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, Retro. I really tried. But yeah, everyone's got their own like kind of thing, and it's not even like modding a D-pad either. It's like it's the wear on it too, because you're using different characters that might use different inputs, and like maybe one part of your pad is a little bit more worn, so you have to put more pressure on it. You just kind of naturally like adjust to that, you know. So there's things like that that make a difference too. So
back forward inputs on pad in general have always been harder for me. Not hard, right? It's a back forward input, but like I feel like I don't get the precision on pad, and half the time I go to hit back and then forward real quick, and I end up jumping up and backwards, and you know, things like that. Yeah, that are always really annoying. And NRS games are riddled with back forward, while other games, you know, which usually like half circles and quarter circles and DP inputs, and I think that's a little bit more Uh, I don't know. That's a better, more sustainable, or whatever on pad.
Those are the ones.
I don't like NRS inputs.
Those are the ones that I'm just more used to NRS inputs. So like, I just gradually I enjoy them better. I'm not good at half circle inputs. I'm especially not good at command grab inputs, like that down, back, forward stuff. No, I can't do that at all.
That doesn't exist in this game. No one has that input. I think they killed the input because everyone's command grab is a half circle, or most of them are half circles, right? Ghostface is a half circle. Reiko's a half circle. I don't know about others that have raw command grabs.
Yeah, I'm not.
But the down, back, forward, I don't think exists anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad. I can never get that input to come out anyways. So I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, or maybe that was the point. Kind of like how Firestorm's like back down 2. You know, that's kind of an awkward input, but like it's a really strong move. So like, kind of
Molina's back down 4.
Yeah.
Old Sajam, you may have heard of him. He had a video recently where he made a tier list of fighting game inputs, and that NRS command grab input was on there. He fucking roasted it, of course.
Of course, it deserves it.
But, you know, I had all the stuff on there, all the pretzel inputs and 720s and 360s. A lot of them are the kind of like, you know, based on the endorphin hit you get it with good, you know, that you get after like good execution, right? And then pulling off that instant 720 with GIF or something like that is, you know, feels good, man.
I remember first seeing him playing Justice Gods Among Us. He was a Nightwing player. That's when I first heard of Sajam. And then
he's one of the, I would say he's one of the bigger names in the overall fighting game community, as far as like being known and the kind of numbers he pulls in on his, you know, stream, his YouTube channel, all that stuff. That's like an actual positive force for NRS. Says nice things about that, even if he doesn't like, you know, the game like really, but he always includes them in the larger conversations, and he knows what he's talking about because he's played the games and stuff. You know, Maximilian is kind of, obviously he's like way bigger than that, and
right,
he's mostly in NRS's corner, right? Like he doesn't love the game design and stuff like that. Sometimes he thinks MK1's really fun.
Yeah. Don't disagree.
But it's nice to have some larger voices out there that don't just take opportunities to shit on it to try to make, you know, another game look better in comparison or something.
Yeah, because I feel it happens sometimes. I'm sure in some points it happens, you know, to all games and in some corner of the universe somewhere, but it definitely seems to have been a kind of a NRS kind of always gets the bottom of the barrel kind of thing. And I mean, maybe that's something to do with the tournament's numbers kind of reflect similar kind of ideas, usually at the bottom of the numbers game. But I mean, some of that is like, it's still banned in certain countries and some countries don't like the gore and that kind of a thing. So, I mean, it's got a certain market. We just saw South America is pretty good at Mortal Kombat. So, I mean,
pretty good, pretty strong, and definitely they think about the game differently, like their approach. Like they definitely have their own little twist on the meta, and I think there's, whether it's cultural thing or whatever, I feel like there's more like sticking with your character, not necessarily character loyalty, but not always looking for the super next best thing to try to squeeze every little possible ounce out of the current meta that you possibly can, you know, things like that. But I always really enjoy seeing any Liga Latina or anything happening down there, because you know you're always going to see something that you haven't seen before, whether that's a team or tech or, you know, whatever.
One of the biggest takeaways for me from that event was the defense, like the amount of flawless blocking of things that, like, just to avoid chip, like just strings, just like longer strings and stuff, just flawless blocking quite often, just the amount of chip that you would save by just flawless blocking these strings that you just didn't really see in NA gameplay, you know, stuff like that, up blocking, you know, like Cyrax's, you know, overhead, mid screen, like things like that, just like that's next level defense.
And Wise Gemini was saying, like, it's like a balance in between that and them like doing everything they can to rob you of your turn, where it's like selective mashing, but with also being like super defensive and just taking your moments. Like, I don't know if that's reading or conditioning or what they're doing to really poke you before you can poke them, even if they're at disadvantage. You know, a lot of timing based stuff. If you were to take like the biggest three regions, let's say Latin America, NA, and EU, I think that while they're all probably they kind of like even out, all scenes have like their own strengths and weaknesses. A strength of the South American scene is definitely defense, more so than other ones. And they're also, I think NA is really caught up in the meta. Like the NA is very much like that, the mighty unjust sort of like train of thought. Yeah, very kind of like what's the strongest and why am I playing this character if this other character is like that much stronger, sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know, really playing to win.
It makes me really excited for the finals of ProComp Season 2, just to see like all these regions coming together and like all the different strengths and all the different metas and seeing like who comes out on top, you know, because
I want to see the upsets. There's definitely going to be upsets.
There's going to be upsets for sure. So I'm excited for that, but maybe we can get into that next week. Thanks everyone for listening. That's it for our podcast for another week. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like because it really helps me out, and subscribe if you haven't because I make new videos almost every single day. Hashtag Bonehawks, all that stuff, and we'll see all you Bonehawks next video.
Accept your death.